What is up, guys? Tyson Dela Cruz here. Thank you so much for rocking with me. Kamala Harris took a day off from campaigning, and the next day she comes out with this presser to spread more hoax and more lies about Donald Trump. Shout out to everybody watching. Drop your comments down below. Smash the like button if you kindly would. It does help with the YouTube algorithm. I truly appreciate it. Kamala Harris steps out, and she's this purely reeks of desperation. This reeks of desperation. An article came out from The Atlantic. The owner of The Atlantic is good friends with Kamala Harris, coincidentally enough, and the article highlights anonymous sources. Anonymous sources. If they are anonymous, they could often be fictitious. And I'm going to pause a little bit throughout this video simply because I don't want to have you guys bear through this with Kamala Harris. But here we go.
Trump's former chief of staff, John Kelly, a retired four-star general, confirmed that while Donald Trump was president, he said he wanted generals like Adolf Hitler had. Donald Trump said that because he does not want a military that is loyal to the United States Constitution. He wants a military that is loyal to him. He wants a military who will be loyal to him personally, one that will obey his orders even when he tells them to break the law or abandon their oath to the Constitution of the United States. In just the past week, Donald Trump has repeatedly called his fellow Americans the enemy from within.
The enemy from within. We all know what's going on. We all know. If you're watching this video, you know what's going on. The DOJ has filed lawsuits after lawsuits trying to stop this man from becoming president again. They're weaponizing the government, the justice system particularly, to not let this man in. But we know it is going to be too big to rig. And they're seeing the polls, and this is the desperation attempt to spread more hoax.
And even said that he would use the United States military to go after American citizens. And let's be clear about who he considers to be the enemy from within. Anyone who refuses to bend a knee or dares to criticize him would qualify in his mind as the enemy within. Like
there is, we'll get back to this video, and I know you guys don't necessarily really care about listening to her, but this is one of the main reasons why he wants Elon Musk on the team, or has Elon Musk on the team, is because Elon Musk was able to cut 80% of the staff at Twitter at the time, before, like right after he purchased it, changed it to X. He got rid of 80% of the team or something like that, and it runs more effectively and better than it ever has before. There was so much ridiculous spending going on. There was crazy amounts of unnecessary spending going on in upper echelons of government that it is completely ridiculous and unnecessary. And we saw this completely break down at the first Butler rally. At the first Butler rally, Secret Service and Homeland Security, to Donald Trump's credit, he gives a lot of praise to the Secret Service and Homeland Security simply because he knows that he's going back into office. But they dropped the ball. They dropped the ball with all their quote unquote technical abilities and capabilities that they have. They still drop the ball. And yet they're spending millions and millions of dollars on salaries and old school equipment. Dan Bongino talked about this as well.
Judges, like journalists, like nonpartisan election officials. It is deeply troubling and incredibly dangerous that Donald Trump would invoke Adolf Hitler, the man who is responsible for the deaths of 6 million Jews and hundreds of thousands of Americans. All of this is further evidence for the American people of who Donald Trump really is. This is a window into who Donald Trump really is, from the people who know him best, from the people who worked with him side by side in the Oval Office and in the Situation Room. And it is clear from John Kelly's words that Donald Trump is someone who, I quote, certainly falls into the general definition of fascist, who in fact vowed to be a dictator on day one and vowed to use the military as his personal militia to carry out his personal and political vendettas.
I don't love this was going to be a sarcastic comment. I love how they just gaslight. They just gaslight, and they take small clips of things and they piece it together and then they run with it. Leftist biased media does the same thing. Donald Trump said that he is going to act like a dictator on day one by cleaning out the house. That's it. Just one day, cleaning out what is unnecessary. Because like I said earlier, there is a lot of unnecessary spending, a lot of unnecessary roles, and a lot of individuals that don't have the United States citizens, Americans, in their best interest.
Donald Trump is increasingly unhinged and unstable. And in a second term, people like John Kelly would not be there to be the guardrails against his propensities and his actions. Those who once tried to stop him from pursuing his worst impulses would no longer be there, and no longer be there to rein him in. So the bottom line is this. We know what Donald Trump wants. He wants unchecked power. The question in 13 days will be, what do the American people want? Thank you.
And she leaves immediately. Doesn't want to take any questions because she can't. She can't take any questions. I want to remind you guys, this is what Obama said a few days ago about division. Do you guys think, let me know in the comment section down below, do you think that this presser that Kamala Harris did is creating more division or reducing division? Obama said it himself. Where's all this division coming from?
I don't understand how we got so toxic and just so divided and so bitter. And I get why sometimes people just don't want to pay attention to it. And we all have friends like that. We have family members who just like, you know, it's all a circus out there. I get that.
He clearly says that could be a Donald Trump ad, by the way. That could be a Donald Trump ad, by the way. And if you needed a reminder about Kamala Harris's mindset when it comes to government entities, here it is.
Government has three essential functions: public safety, public health, and public education. And they should not be privatized. Why? Because it should never be a function of how much money you have that you get access to any of those three services.
Now, there was a video that I posted that I'll place a link down below for, or somewhere on this video. Joe Brown and Candace Owens, great interview, by the way. Joe Brown talks about the deceptive tactics that the Democratic Party uses to manipulate people into falling in line. This was one of the main reasons, and I got to be careful on here because this is the YouTubes, but the falling in line comes into place also with our school systems, our education systems. They don't teach you particular things when you get out of school. They just teach you how to be a robot, and then they have you go into debt with college, and then you work your 9-to-5 job. No offense to anybody who works 9-to-5 jobs. Everybody has to work, but it doesn't. It's all a form of control. It's all a form of control, and the way that they're doing it is in a manner of deceptive tactics, at least in my opinion. I got to say that because of the YouTubes. Here is Kash Patel absolutely blow torching Kamala Harris's statement that we just saw.
That Trump is praising Hitler, according to John Kelly, his former chief of staff, who was also the Secretary of Homeland Security. He doesn't want a military that's loyal to the Constitution. He wants a military that's loyal to him. You worked in the Pentagon. What do you say?
Hey, it's great to be with you. Thanks for having me. Look, I was president of the staff of the Department of Defense, and what I saw was a man withdraw out of multiple theaters of conflict. What I saw was a commander-in-chief who brought home over 50 hostages and detainees from around the world. That's more than every president before him combined. What I saw was a man attend almost every single dignified transfer of the fallen and spend countless hours with the families of the fallen, giving them the love and care that they need, and most importantly, securing the financial assistance that they need. I saw this man host these individuals and their families in the Oval Office. I saw him prioritize our veterans and our uniformed military members to make sure they had the weapons that they needed and the munitions that they needed, especially if you were going to send them overseas to fight another man's war. And I saw, most importantly, more than anything, invoke the Constitution when it came to the National Command Authority and execute the mission, the no-fail mission of the United States of America and the Department of Defense to secure our freedom. So they can print whatever they want. And we could talk about the Vanessa Guillen story. I was there as his chief of staff at the Department of Defense for that one. But I saw a man as a commander-in-chief and President Donald Trump who fought our veterans and uniforms of the military. And if they want to call him Hitler and try to print out more disinformation, I guess that's all they got, because Kamala Harris could have brought home the hostages right now in Israel from a war she started with $7 billion she gave to Iran, and she hasn't brought home any of them. She started 2 more world wars.
All right, so you mentioned Vanessa Guillen, who was that young soldier at Fort Hood, Texas, who was murdered, and then her body was dumped in some wetlands. This article in The Atlantic that talks about Trump praising Hitler's generals also talks about the idea that in December of 2020, after meeting with the family in the Oval Office, and I attended that meeting, I was the pool reporter that day, that he had offered to pay a portion of her funeral costs. There was a meeting, you were there, Chris Miller was there, the acting Secretary of Defense, Mark Meadows was there, Ben Williamson was there, I believe Mark Milley was there as well, where the subject of the funeral and the payment came up. Trump apparently said he was upset with the cost of the funeral that he had agreed to pay for, said something disparaging about her, and refused to pay. Was any of that true?
Absolutely not.
I just want to pardon the audio and visual on this. It looks like Cash is in a bus or some sort, so his Wi-Fi is chopping in and out. He has to get that Starlink.
Trump, when we brought to the attention the tragic murder of Yen, who was serving in our armed forces, President Trump unilaterally stated we are going to give her the honor and dignity she needs and her family assistance she needs. President Trump ensured that the Department of Defense gave Vanessa Guillen full military honors and paid for the entire financial package that was needed to secure and honor her memory. And if you don't want to believe me, a person who was there in the Oval Office along with Chris Miller, then believe the family. Vanessa Guillen's own sister and mother came out yesterday and specifically said that Donald Trump could not have been more gracious, caring, and loving as a commander-in-chief. And they said that what the Atlantic printed were outright lies, and they're desecrating the memory of the fallen. It is absolutely disgusting for me, who ran the Department of Defense, to see the politicization of our members, of our men and women who wore the cloth of our nation to defend us and our freedoms, and then to come out at the 11th hour to try and make up more stories. It's better that we question the folks and the sources like the Mark Milleys of the world, who took it upon himself to call our enemies in China and discuss war planning operations and politicize the Department of Defense rather than execute the National Command Authority and safeguard our mission. We are so sorry that Vanessa Guillen's family is going through this, but Donald Trump ensured that the DOD would pay for it. And what he said afterwards was maybe even more convincing of his commander-in-chief's command. He said if the military didn't pick up the tab, he would in its entirety. That's the commander-in-chief I want.
I want to come back to what the vice president said in just a moment, but again, it was July 30th, 2020. I was in the Oval Office. I was the pool reporter when Vanessa Guillen's family, including Myra, her sister, were there. Here's what her sister said to the president about him meeting with the family, and he did it privately and then opened up the Oval Office meeting to cameras because he wanted to get more attention placed on this. Listen to what Myra Guillen said.
I want to thank you for taking the time, taking us in. It's an honor to be able to meet you, and I know you're going to help us and, you know, honoring our sister, passing the bill. And of course, I want to point out how is it that her chain of command failed drastically.
Yeah, I mean, that was quite a moment there. It was somber. It was respectful. I know the family very much appreciated it. All right, let's come back to what the vice president said a minute ago. This was at the top of her remarks. Listen here, Cash.
So yesterday we learned that Donald Trump's former chief of staff, John Kelly, a retired four-star general, confirmed that while Donald Trump was president, he said he wanted generals like Adolf Hitler had. Donald Trump said that because he does not want a military that is loyal to the United States Constitution. He wants a military that is loyal to him. He wants a military who will be loyal to him personally, one that will obey his orders even when he tells them to break the law or abandon their oath to the Constitution of the United States. In just the past week, Donald Trump has repeatedly called his fellow Americans the enemy from within, and even said that he would use the United States military to go after American citizens. And let's be clear about who he considers to be the enemy from within. Anyone who refuses to bend a knee or dares to criticize him would qualify in his mind as the enemy within, like judges, like journalists, like nonpartisan election officials. It is deeply troubling and incredibly dangerous that Donald Trump would invoke Adolf Hitler, the man who is responsible for the deaths of 6 million Jews and hundreds of thousands of Americans. All of this is further evidence for the American people of who Donald Trump really is. This is a window into who Donald Trump really is, from the people who know him best, from the people who worked with him side by side in the Oval Office and in the Situation Room. And it is clear from John Kelly's words that Donald Trump is someone who, I quote, certainly falls into the general definition of fascist, who in fact vowed to be a dictator on day one and vowed to use the military as his personal militia to carry out his personal and political vendettas. Donald Trump is increasingly unhinged and unstable. And in a second term, his work power.
Let's fast forward that.
The American people want. Thank you.
So, Cash, I'm not quite sure why a presidential candidate comes out to react to a story in the way that she did, particularly a story that, even if it were true, is at least 4 years old, if not older than that, because John Kelly was gone as chief of staff not too far into the administration. And why would it come out now, just 13 days until Election Day?
Because they want to put President Trump and his powerful national security policy on defense. We are not going on defense. When President Trump was a commander-in-chief, he went on offense. He ended the forever wars. He crushed the narco traffickers. He brought home hostages. He ended child sex trafficking. And he was brave enough to use military assets in an expansive order to keep not only Americans safe, but the global world order safe. He made sure the DOD was no longer politicized and weaponized. Every one of the names she mentioned, all those individuals begged and auditioned to be in the positions they got. And when President Trump told them that the Department of Defense is a civilian chain of command, just like President Washington and our Constitution designated it to be, they did not like that. They were fighting off 60 years of the defense industrial complex owning the Department of Defense, and Donald Trump restored civilian authority to the chain of command. And he executed that when he asked for an investigation of Vanessa Guillen's death, tragic death, so we know what actually happened, and so the military could provide her the full honors and designation she deserves. That's the commander-in-chief they want. What they want now is us to react to headlines, and I'm going to remind the world what Donald Trump did as our commander-in-chief. And I am going to remind the world that he was the one that did not politicize it and did not bend the knee to Washington, D.C. and the generals that have been going in and out of the defense industrial complex, raking in tens of millions of dollars off of another man's war and sending men and women to die for matters that aren't our own. That's what they are afraid of, that President Trump will restore the DOD with the civilian chain of command the Constitution demands and safeguard this world and our nation.
All right, Kash Patel.
What do you guys think about that? Cash is on point with that.
At the Pentagon. So
Cash is on point with that. Here is Miss Pierre, Miss Outfits. Reporter asked her, so just to be clear, when you said we do agree President Biden believes that Donald Trump is a fascist. Let's jump into this. Oh, and if you haven't smashed the like button yet, please smash the like button.
Is the president aware of John Kelly's assertion that Donald Trump meets the definition of a fascist, and that Trump wanted the kinds of generals Hitler had?
I mean, look, you have heard from this president over and over again about the threats to democracy, and the president has spoken about that. You've heard from the former president himself saying that he is going to be a dictator on day one. This is him, not us. This is him. And it's not just us, the White House, saying this.
Guys, get your gas masks ready because we're 13 days to go to this election, and there is going to be a lot of gas lighting coming up. So be sure that you have your gas mask on and your eyes open and your ears are listening.
You've heard it from officials, former officials that worked for the former president say this as well. So, you know, do we agree? I know that the vice president just spoke about this. Do we agree about that determination? Yes, we do. We do. Let's not forget, I will point you to January 6th. What we saw on January 6th, 2,000 people were told to go to the Capitol to undo a free and fair election.
Lies.
By the former president. It was a dark, dark day in our democracy and a dangerous one. We have people who died because of what happened on January 6th. And, you know, we cannot forget that. We cannot forget that. And so, and I will add this, that, and I can't believe I even have to say this, but our nation's veterans are heroes. They are heroes. They're not losers or suckers. They are heroes. And to be praising Adolf Hitler is dangerous, and it's also disgusting.
So just to be clear, when you said we do agree, President Biden believes that Donald Trump is a fascist.
I mean, yes, we have said. He said himself. The former president has said he is going to be a dictator on day one. We cannot ignore that. We cannot. And
these people are so unhinged at the moment. They are unhinged. They are losing it. They are losing it. So they're pulling out all the stops.
We cannot ignore or forget what happened on January 6, 2021. That is real. Real people were affected by this. Law enforcement who were trying to protect the Capitol, protect law, elected officials in the Capitol, congressional members, senators, House members. Their lives were ruined because of that day. Because 2,000 people, again, 2,000 people were told by the former president to go there, to find the former vice president, to stop a free and fair election. That is what happened. Some of your colleagues were there.
The rhetoric on this is absolutely ridiculous. What do you guys think about this? Drop it down in the comment section down below. Here is Glenn Beck. Glenn Beck talking about Kamala Harris. This one's a good one. You guys are going to like this one. This one is a good one. Oh, lost audio. Hold on. Here we go.
Beefed it up. But when I left, my security, I think, is some of the best in the world. I have my two head guys were the domestic protection, head of the domestic protection, and then the other was the foreign protection of, let's just say, a name you know, and one of the top 5 richest people in the world. They both work for me. And when they left that event and seeing Secret Service and then seeing the airport and everything else, the head of my security said, I have a very bad feeling, Glenn. And I said, what do you mean? And he's never said anything like this before. I have a very bad feeling. I'm not sure he's going to make it to January 20th. And he was specifically worried about Donald Trump's airplane being shot out of the sky. But he, as he has said, it could happen a million ways. You have the leaders of this country juicing people up. You have AI and algorithms that can so easily find, if I could say to Google today, find people in this state that are disturbed, don't like Trump already, maybe a little schizophrenic and likes guns. I could have that within a minute, the name. Now, take these 5 names and coax them into, without anybody knowing, ephemeral coaxing, so there's no record of it, and coax them into thinking they have to shoot the president of the United States. That's all real. What is Kamala Harris doing? What aren't they willing to do for power? When you see people hungry for power, that they will do that, God help us. God help us. Don't give them more power.
Glenn, we are out of time. I agree with you. I think they're going to try to kill Trump again before Election Day. This surge is out of control right now, as with early voting. The vibes are gone and the joy is gone. And you are right. This is a point that our mutual friend Dennis Prager has made for as long as I've been following him. If you believe somebody is Hitler, what wouldn't you do? What it is a dog whistle to every single sleeper cell and every crazy person out there, every schizophrenic person that might have a firearm. It's okay now to go after Donald Trump. These are desperate people. These are the worst of society. Yes, 20 seconds, Glenn.
Yeah, this is what propaganda wars is really about. They've pushed mental illness onto this country. So many people are still wearing masks. They have taken maybe even a third of the country and just locked them into crazy town.
We must pray that Donald Trump survives what's coming next.
Yes, we all got to pray to what's coming next. I know I do. I want this man protected. I want everybody in the team to be protected, because the rhetoric that the left is pushing out is not a good rhetoric. Charlie Kirk said it right there. He said, and so did Glenn Beck, anybody with a firearm that is somewhat mentally ill or unstable, and you're pushing this rhetoric that this individual is doing these bad things, there is no telling what is coming down the pipe. We got to pray. We got to pray for Donald Trump. We got to pray for the safety of Donald Trump, the team, Elon Musk, everybody around him, JD Vance. We have to pray. What do you guys think about this? Drop it in the comment section down below. Smash the like button, share, subscribe. And as always, guys, I'll catch you on the next one.